Alrighty then. Hello, everybody. Hey, Woody, I see you're already here and you're pretty active already. Let's see what we got here. All right. Today is the first day I am covered by my medical insurance. Well, congratulations, my friend. That sounds like a cool thing. Let's see. Quite similar to the insurance I had before, except that now I have to pay $172 a month and $35 per specialist visit. Ouch. So I will be much poorer, but mostly about as healthy as, and I will die soon and relieve the rest of the citizens of my oldness. Woody. Anyways, hey, stick around. Thank you for dropping the like. Getting the share out there. Hopefully, we can get some more friendly people in here. So you're just waiting around to see if you can get some more. Woody, if you're still here, let me know so that, like you should know better than to read my grumpy comments. Well, hey, it's interaction, right? Um, but then again, I don't realize that you're just being grumpy. I just figure just what you're expressing. Let's hear about some comics and stuff. Ah, so you want me to get right into it then? Well, hey, you you did at least did the right thing by coming right in and asking for it. So I guess if you're ready for me to start going, then I guess we can get started because there's two of us here, and I see you liked it, and if you can share it as well, that help get some more friendly people in here. And with that, so I guess I will kind of get started. Um, so tonight we're gonna go through I'm gonna go through three articles, but before that, there's some other news I'm gonna address that not as much through an article, but just they say that things happen in threes, right? Well, over the last I'd say 8 days or so, um, we lost three legendary voice actors, actresses. I already talked about one of them, I think, last week, David Warner. David Warner, who of course was known for providing the voice. Probably one of his most famous roles is providing the voice of Ra's al Ghul in the DC8 throughout the DCAU, starting off, of course, with Batman the animated series, as well as I'm ready like SpongeBob. Okay. Um, let's see. Also, Batman the animated series, the new Batman Adventures, Justice League, Batman Beyond. He provided the voice of Ra's al Ghul, as well as providing, of course, the voices of Archmage and Gargoyles and Nurgle and in the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. Passed away at the age of 80, just 5 days before his 81st birthday, back on the 24th. Um, so probably did already talk about him, but since his birthday was the 29th, he passed away 5 days prior to his 85th birthday. So I wanted to give another quick little shout out to that. Then this past Saturday, the 30th, we lost two more voice actresses. Um, Nichelle Nichols, who of course is known for a role as Lieutenant Uhura in the Star Trek series, Star Trek the original series. Aside from that, among her voice credits included reprising her role as Uhura in the Filmation in 1973 Filmation animated series Star Trek the animated series. She also provided the voices of and Maza in Gargoyles, and also as Miriam the Vampire Queen in Spider-Man the Animated Series. Oh, by the way, going back to David, I did say he was 80 years old. Passed away after an 18-month battle with lung cancer. Nichelle Nichols passed away at the age of 89. She had suffered a stroke at her home in Silver Lake, New Mexico. And then the last person also passed away on the 30th, was Pat Carroll. Name might not sound as familiar, but she's probably, in terms of a voice credits, her probably most famous voice credit as Ursula throughout the Disney franchises, most notably The Little Mermaid, and of course through many other Disney produced cartoons. Ursula from The Little Mermaid, and then also she also portrayed the voice of grandmother Arbuckle in Grandmother Arbuckle in Garfield, in the Garfield cartoons of the 80s. So, and she passed away at the age of 95 from pneumonia. So, yeah. So we're going to, at least first off here, Woody, if you're still here, let me know. Yeah. So, anyways, I'm going to go ahead and do a moment of silence for David Warner, Nichelle Nichols, and Pat Carroll. David Warner passing away at the age of 80 after an 18-month battle with lung cancer. Nichelle Nichols passing away at the age of 89 after having a stroke, and then Pat Carroll passing away at the age of 95 after catching pneumonia. So, all right, so let's go ahead and do a moment of silence for them. Okay. With that, as we've gotten started here, I started a little early because Woody was saying he wanted me, and then he takes off on me. Okay, so we've already started anyway, so I might as well just keep going. So with that, as I said, we have 3 articles we're going to go over. Actually, a couple of those are going to be interview segments. One following up on an interview segment with some of the game developers over in Japan, talking about some of the lowly censorship that's going on, and another interview fan and translators. Let me see. I'll just go ahead and read them off. The first interview we're going to look at is a developer of Japanese games discuss the rise of lowly censorship in anime and video games. The second interview we're going to cover Fan and professional translators speak out on Western localization issues and the current state of the English manga industry. Both of these articles, of course, by Nerdigans Inc. And then the last article we're going to read through. Indie publisher Voyage Comics launches its quote unquote Voyage Classics line with the book of Saints and Heroes. So by J.B. Augustine. So those three articles plus the wrestling wrap up, and then of course I've already talked about the passings. So since, as I said, I already got started anyways. All right. Give me a quick moment. I'm going to go off camera here for a quick moment here. I'll be right back. And I'm back. Anyways, with that should help now. All right. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and move on to get to the first article here. It's going to be an interview in regards to um, the uh, go to the first article we're going to read here. Um, all right. So interview developer of Japanese video games discusses the rise of lowly censorship in anime and video games. Now, for those of you who may not be aware of what a loli is, loli is basically like the cute little girl type character in anime and manga and video games. Like the kind of cute little girl, you know, like real kind of childlike, naive, you know, kind of character. That's what they're talking about with loli. Usually, it actually oftentimes does depict somebody who actually is like a child, but or just a very cute, younger woman. But anyways, article by Nerdigan published back on Friday the 29th. So here we go. Recently there has been a drastic increase in outrage against loli and loli style artworks and characters. Hmm. Anyways, unable to separate the concept of quote young females drawn with baby-like big eyes. Okay, unable to separate the concept of quote young females drawn with baby-like big eyes, a chubby face, and a small build, um, unquote, from the real world critics of the art style. From the real world, critics of the art style and fandom have falsely accused both of promoting sexual violence against real world minors. Wow. uh, so basically, what they're saying here is they basically um, they're basically accusing people who do the artwork on these of being nasty. That's what it comes down to. Believing themselves to be performing a societal good, the vocal condemnation campaigns undertaken by opponents have resulted in such outcomes as a Japanese mangaka being harassed, Patreon blanket purging any art even slightly fitting the style standard, and a player being banned from a fighting game tournament for liking the genre's numerous lowly characters. Yeah, that sounds kind of stupid. That does sound kind of stupid, but anyways, let me just check something. Got a message. Let's see what. Let me see. Let's see what this. Oh, okay. 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 So noted. So noted. Meaning I give it. In other words, you didn't want me. In light of this ongoing attempt to erase any trace of the lowly style from anime and video games, um, in light of this ongoing attempt to erase any trace of the lowly style from anime and video games, and curious as to how this attitude has affected the actual industry bounding into comics, reach out to an insider for their insights. Graciously taking time out of their day to speak with us after we reached out, writer, 3D artist, developer of Japanese video games Haru47 spoke with us about the rising trend and what it means for the future of Japanese media in the West. All right. Nerdigans Inc. What anime and what video game kicked off the rise in loli censorship? Haru47 answers, I think the anime that started everything was Kodomo no Jiken, controversial anime about a loli falling in love with her teacher. I've seen a lot of anti lolicons bring this anime as an example. Um, okay, here's the thing though. That's maybe not as much with quote unquote loli or like real young girls, but that is an actual common theme in a lot of animes where maybe not as much as like the real young girls, like elementary age girls, but definitely middle school and high school girls. That's a common theme where you do have in some cases where the in both cases with the girls falling in love with the male teacher and with the guys falling in love with a female teacher. I mean, like an example I can give in terms of a high schooler, kind of becoming involved in a relationship with not just one of his teachers or school staff, but like five of them is man, I can't even remember the name of it now. Oh man, I do remember there was one where like the teachers all moved in with this one student because they thought he wasn't being cared for enough because he lived alone or whatever. But I can't even remember the actual name of it now. Um, yeah. Anyways, sorry about that. But it is a pretty common plot or subplot where you know usually in middle school or a high school student might fall in love with their teacher. This one, I guess, takes it down to the elementary school levels. What they're saying. As for games, it was Nekopara series or any Arrow Loli visual novel. Um, I think also the Senran Kagura series, considering a lot of people were celebrating the censorship received um, by Sony. Hurricanes Inc. When would you say the sudden shift in lowly erasure began? Auto 47. I personally felt it began in mid 2016. I know it's probably a longer debacle, but from personal experience, mid 2016 is when anime was becoming more mainstream. You know, for- all these normies are just watching the seasonal shows without even bothering to investigate the tropes of the media they consume. Yeah, it's just true. Sometimes you get into like if you watch mostly Pokemon and like the main ones like Bleach and Naruto and all that. That's not as it's not as much. You're not gonna get as much of the not gonna understand some of the other aspects of it. Um, let's see. Nerdigan Kingston asked, "Would you say it was around the same time video games?" And Haru responded, "Actually, yes. At least for Sony's part, in 2016 when they started with their censorship policy over the Me Too movement." Uh-huh. Yep. That was true as well. A lot of this stuff came about from the rise in SJWism. As he continued on here, kind of ironic, they are now facing gender discrimination lawsuit, and one of their VPs got fired for trying to hooked up with a minor, but and smells lowly bad, according to Sony. Um, one of the games referred to by Haru 47, in parentheses here. One of the games referred to by Haru 47, Star Ocean 5, Integrity and Faithlessness, at the start of the Me Too era, Square Enix increased the size of um, Miki's fan. Now, some of you may know because I covered a similar story over the week, last week as well, where Seven Seas and Square Enix, were starting to censor even more by the what we saw the other day in the overseas releases of the series' fifth installment due to Western accusations that it over sexualized its underage characters. Nerdigans Inc. Why in particular is there such a prejudice against lolis? Why can't the loli critics seem to comprehend that the illustrations they are fighting to protect are not real children? And in parentheses, and that some lolis are adults. Um, oh, this is a very interesting answer from Haru 47. Projection. I think a lot of people would probably agree. And I wish I was making this up, but most of the time, most of these people are guilty of the same thing they accuse everyone. Everyone of. Yeah, that's kind of an old. It's kind of funny because it's actually something even Glenn Beck actually talked about, not necessarily in regards to just like what we're talking about here with like lolicons and censorship and all that, and and accusations of nasty things. Um, but Glenn Beck talked about how um, like a lot of the more radical movements, that would be one of the things they would do. They would basically one of the strategies was look in the mirror, look at what you do, and then point to the other guy and say, "Yeah, he's doing it." That kind of idea. Quote, as for the drawing part, um, it's illegal. They insist it's illegal. Um, but the part they missed is that it's actually pornographic drawings in real life children that are illegal. Which is true. It's picking real children in pornography is illegal. Um, not um, not in fictional work. Okay? Loli is not because Loli is not because it's based on fictional characters. Loli is not because it's based on fictional characters. This was the main reason why Larry Sanger, the co-founder of Wikipedia, reported lolicon content on the site to the FBI, only for the agency to label his report as a waste of time. Even the guy in charge of Wikipedia or the co-founder of Wikipedia tried to report it and was told, "Hey, no, this is not porn." He's pretty much told, "No, this is not child pornography." So um, let me check that message that Pop just sent me. All right, all right. Anyways, as we continue on here. Oh, we got back up to 2 people. All right. So, anyways, and if somebody just pop in, we're talking about some of the censorship going on with lolis in anime and video games right now. So, um, pretty interesting article too. So, anyways, Nerdigans Inc. I recently spoke to a professional translator regarding the state of English localization industry, and he revealed that the stranglehold a certain group of English localizers had on the video game industry was worse than it was for anime and manga. Are they involved with the Western coordinators on the escalated censorship of loli content? Haru47 answered, yes, I believe so, considering that localizers were always complaining on social media about tropes they hate and have actually lied and said the word lolicon translates to the P word in Japanese. In reality, the Japanese use another word called or shonisei or jidosai, shonisei or jidosei. And this source is from Seitan Academy. Join the pack, episode 12, the animal students. Now that right there is cute. That's not anybody who would depict that as sexual has got a screw loose in their own head. By now, video game publishers like Sony should have realized that lolicons are a fierce community who are loyal to their loli waifus. Why would the publishers ignore the money in favor of an audience that are more than likely not going to play their games? Quote, now that's the funny part. Okay, so that was Nerdigan's question, and then here's Haru47's answer to that question. Now that's the funny part. People want to erase any skimpily dressed female character, but are okay with sexualizing male characters. Oh, one of my favorite examples of this hypocrisy is from YouTuber Noralites. She made a long video complaining about loli characters by using the term minor coded just for people to find that she made a video lusting over Hanako-kun, a Shota character, and her art page was full of explicit yaoi content of underage characters. Yeah, it's kind of funny if if the pictures are bad for females, that you would think they should be bad for minor male characters too. But that is being hypocritical about it. And of course, the thing is, you too. Okay, so this particular toilet bound and a hot cookie. So kind of not meant to be anything sexual, but like we all get potty humor, right? We all get potty humor there. Um, so I hope you're enjoying the content that's going. If you haven't already, you can like and share the stream, see if more friendly people on here. I'd really be appreciated. Um, so here again, has been asked, what are your thoughts on the Climax of Night Lowly Band scandal? And Horror 47 answers, I think it was a really stupid ban. Imagine getting banned over a meme that says you like loli. Yeah, again, it's fictional characters there. In light of recent events, his character archetype is still great. Shout out to the haughty lolis in fighting games. And again, loli, and they even said it at the beginning of this article too. Lolis are not necessarily all child characters either. Okay, a lot of lolis just look like children. They have kind of the more cutesy, um, cutesy aspect. So any young, in a way, any young woman who like puts her hair in a pair of ponytails like a little girl could be considered a loli. You could make the argument Mia Yim, who is a professional wrestler with Impact. And of course, I was going to be talking about her a little later anyway, because she's challenging Jordan Grace for the Impact Knockouts title, in a little under 2 weeks here, at Emergence. I mean, you could argue she could be considered a loli in a way, but she's like a 30-year-old woman, but yet she looks like she kind of, she puts her hair in a pair of ponytails, and because of that, because she could pass herself off, kind of cute with the ponytail, she could be considered a loli, even though she's a 30-year-old woman. So, quote, the organizers of the event started calling the devs of Melty Blood the P word. And the reason I'm saying the P word, because we know that even in certain in more matter of fact context, even YouTube will strike you if you use the full word. Kind of dumb, because it goes back to, okay, how are you using it? It's not, when you're using it in the context I'm using it, I would be using it here. It's more matter of fact. It's more reporting on a news item. I'm not promoting it or denouncing it. They probably wish I didn't denounce it, of course, but and of course, I'll put it this way: first off, people should wait till they get married before they even consider engaging in intercourse. That's just my own personal opinion. I think the times have proven it's been proven time and time again that when you have sex outside of marriage, it proves to be a much more complicated, much more cumbersome situation than if you were to just get married and do it the right way. Okay. And basically anybody under anybody under the age, basically anybody under the age of 18 should not even be thinking about having sex. Okay. So, anyway, excuse me a moment. I gotta check on something as my dog's barking. I don't know if my sister's still here because I know she came up. Hey, RJ, thank you, my friend. And if you can stick around and listen, because some of this stuff's pretty interesting. I gotta go check on something real quick. I'll be right back. I hope you'll stick around though, as I'm back. Had to go tend to my dog. So, RJ, if you're still here, as always, feel free. Anything as I'm reading the article, anything catches your attention or anything like that, feel free to comment or add any input or perspective that you wish. Um, Anyways, as we now get ready to continue on. Um, okay, so we had just read the organizers of the event started calling calling the devs of Melty Blood keyword while still using their product for their own monetary gain. Yeah, that sounds a little hypocritical too. Just the overt hypocrisy of a lot of these SJWs too. Um, you come to the point you can't express yourself if you like a certain character trope because higher up will throw you under the bus to appeal to a minority of annoying people, which is true. Which is very true. What action? Okay, so Nerdigans Inc. then asks, what actions can the video game community take to fight back against censorship? Haro47 responds, as a developer, I say, don't buy their censored products. Hit publishers where it hurts them. As a consumer, they offered you a product a certain way just so they later backpedal and expect you to give them money. In other words, yeah, you can go straight to the game developers and straight to the company for the game that way. So this scene, of course, is from Winner Player One here. This scene's from Melty Blood, actress again, current code from 2016. Let's see. Nerdigans Incorporated asked, recently the manga community has taken their English localization concerns to the Japanese publishers. Should video game fans begin to take a similar approach? Haro47 responds, they've basically been taking the same approach. The thing is, whether or not publishers are willing to listen, which is true. Let's see, winner Taiga Aisuka here. This is from Dengeki Bunko Fighting Climax Ignition from French Red. Taiga Aisuka. No, I can't remember. Again, can't remember the name of that particular anime, but all right. Editor's note. Parentheses here. Editor's note. Originally, this article and its title referred to Haru47 at Haru47 as a quote unquote Japanese video game developer. While this phrasing was meant to describe his role as a developer who worked on Japanese games, it unfortunately but understandably gave some readers a mistaken impression that the developer was a Japanese native. As such, the text has since been updated to clarify that at Haru47 is a quote developer of Japanese video games. So, so yeah. So just again, I guess that was a bit of a correction they felt they needed to put in there because people, I guess, were assuming that Haru47 was of Japanese descent. Whether or not he was or wasn't, I couldn't tell you. But anyways, I get ready to move on to the next article here that we're covering. Let's see, any more comments about that? All right, getting ready to move on then to the next article here. All right, anyways, all right, so all right. so here we go. Here we got another interview I was talking about along the same lines. Similar situation. I think this one's going to focus more on like the anime side of the localization and censorship issues that they've had. So, so here we go with it then. So here we go. Interview fan and professional translators speak out on Western localization issues and the current state of the English manga industry. So this is more anime manga side of it. The other article we just read was more about the video game side of it. So now we're going to get into the anime manga. Article by Nerdigans published last Friday. So this is what he was referring to in the other article when he said he recently talked to. So the recent saga of Seven Seas International mistranslation of I Think I Turned My Childhood Friend Into a Girl has brought more attention than ever to the growing trend of Western localizers erasing a Japanese artist's original work in favor of pushing their own personal, social, and political beliefs on readers. Mm-hmm. In light of the growing pushback against activist localizers, Bounding into Comics spoke to manga fan scanlation group Project Vinland and professional Japanese to English translator at Bonsama. And we've heard from Bonsama before in some of the other articles we've read on it, including going over the Seven Seas and Square Enix articles. Taking the time to speak with us, the two translators shared with us their thoughts on the state of the English localization industry, how publishers can start to earn back fan trust, what actions readers can take to improve the quality of the translations of their favorite series. From Kamen Rider Spirits, The Legend of Kamen Rider Chapter 63. All right. First up, our series of interviews was first up in our series of interviews was Project Vinland, the scanlation group, perhaps best known for translating popular manga series, including Vinland Saga, Yona of the Dawn, and Yomi no Suga. Yona of the Dawn was a pretty good anime. I watched that. Okay, so Nerdigans Inc. asks, what are your thoughts on the latest Seven Seas localization scandal? Project Vinland answered, as a group, we always try to stay as close to the Japanese text as possible. We don't localize series, we simply translate them. Sometimes when a translation doesn't necessarily make sense in English, we will see if we can fix whatever is closest. Whatever is closest. That's usually the case in with slang and other colloquialisms. Yeah, basically, like there's a difference sometimes in what the translators / localizer, whatever you want to call it, do. So sometimes translators may have to make slight changes in order to help it make a little more sense in terms of going from the Japanese, the way Japanese language is done versus the way the English language is done. In terms of grammatical structure, and all that. Sometimes that does need to be taken into account. And as they said, certain slangs and colloquialisms, certain words have, as mentioned in the last article, as mentioned in the previous article we were reading there, where where oftentimes some of the localizers would mischaracterize a particular word, or saying that like like what they were saying was lolicon literally translates to the P word. Remember when we were talking about that? But the developer was pointing out, no, they actually have another word for that. So you know, but usually when something doesn't make grammatical sense, that type of change is okay. But to change something to like push a particular narrative, or to push, as Nerd Again's pointing out in the beginning of this article here, to push something, that to push your own social and political beliefs on the reader is just wrong. It's not truly representative of what the artist is expressing. Um, let's see. Okay. Quote, an example of how much attention we pay to staying true to the Japanese. I recently translated a chapter of Vinland Saga where I wrote, quote, we will have to wait, in smaller quotes, which was corrected by our main translator to, in smaller quotes, we will wait, as there is a subtle difference between the two. The latter is closer to the Japanese. Quote, it pains me to see a localization scandal like this with Seven Seas, as it reminds me of the, in smaller quotes, donuts from the English Pokemon dub, um, parentheses, which were clearly onigiri. I'm just really wondering what the localization theme was, we're aiming for here, as it's fundamentally changing a story element. Um, quote, I'd also like to know the opinion of the translator, as they usually don't get too much input, if any at all. Well, I think it's supposed to say if any at all, but there was a typo there, if ant at all, in a localization process after providing a translation script. Personally, I'm absolutely not a fan of these kind of localizations, and I wish Seven Seas would rescind this publication. Unquote. And before I get to the next question there, I'm going to step away from the computer for a quick moment. I'll be right back. I am back. All right, so getting to the Nerdigan's next question here. Nerdigan asks, What are your thoughts on the current state of English localization of manga and anime? Project Vinland, quote, current state of English localization seems pretty good at the moment. I usually don't buy manga in English, but in Japanese. However, the past 5 to 10 years, a lot of my favorite series have been getting beautiful English language releases. I'm a sucker for hardcovers, so series like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Hokuto no Ken, Vinland Saga, Berserk, Full Metal Alchemist, and other receiving hardcover editions in English is just the way right up my alley. It makes me feel really happy. Companies are putting in the effort to release unique and high quality English language editions of series. But I'm also an enormous fan of the digital only or digital first publishers like Kodansha are adopting. I'm a huge fan of Shaman King, and it had always been a hopeless dream that we'd get all the new spin offs and sequels in English. However, Kodansha is publishing everything in English digitally right now, and when the digital sales are good enough, I'm sure they will continue with the print version. The fact that I get to read English releases I never thought I'd be able to, even if it's just digital, is amazing to me. So all in all, I'm really happy with the current state of English localization and publication of manga. Nerdigans Inc. In the last in the last decade or so, have you noticed a shift in Western manga localization industry? In the okay, Project Vinland answered, I have definitely noticed a shift in the industry. Maybe not the last decade, more specifically in the last 5 years or so. I'm seeing a lot of quote unquote cookie cutter isekai and romance manga be localized, especially from publishers like Seven Seas. Now, this is simply personal bias, as isekai and rom coms are 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 just genres I rarely enjoy. But whenever there's a new licensing announcement, friends and I try to predict how many cookie cutter isekai romance manga will be announced with titles that take about 7 minutes to say out loud. And that's true. That like one of the things that has been I've noticed that too. There's been a few titles like that, like is it okay to pick up girls in a dungeon? Let's see, that time I got reincarnated as a slime. Um, let's see, I think there's a few others like that. That where they have those long titles for some reason. But anyways, quote. Meanwhile, fans had to fight tooth and nail to get um, Danmei, a genre of Chinese fantasy novels officially licensed in English. Um, some of which were unfortunately rushed, leaving no time for the translators to go over their work again and fix the mistakes. Feels unfair when at the same time isekais seem to get unlimited resources. Quote, I have to say that for the localization itself, it currently is very good in my opinion. Long gone are the days of flipped manga with dialogue completely rewritten to be more quote unquote American. More often than not, do we now get series with a much better translation that's closer the Japanese with appendixes on translation and translation of Japanese culture. Let's see. Nerdigans Inc. then asks, "What are your thoughts on the treatment of fans?" Um, in parentheses, that includes scan leaders from Western publishers. Project Vinland responds, "The treatment of fans is something that has grown to be better with the rise of social media. It is far easier to reach out to publishers through Twitter and Facebook, and often when you answer a question, it is actually answered. The treatment of scan leaders seems to also have improved by miles. Where we once were shunned and taboo, not even allowed to be put on resumes when applying for an industry position. Nowadays, I have publishers contacting me to see if I am interested in working for them. When fans have so much passion that they devote their free time to a project, to me, it always seemed like the easy choice to ask them to join the official localization. Especially now that so many publishers are offering simulpubs. Um, the only publisher that I never really heard from regarding scanlation is Kodansha, which is a shame in my opinion. Myself and other groups that work on Kodansha manga are usually able to offer simulpubs to scan readers, so why can't they themselves? I know lots of scan leaders are struggling and yet still putting their precious time into the series they love that would jump on the opportunity to get paid for their efforts. Tokyo Revengers. I can see if there's. There we go. All right, so Nerdigan asks, and what actions do you believe should be taken to improve the current quality of English localization? Project Vinland answers, I think the action that needs to be taken is that an editor from the original publication in Japanese needs to okay the English localization in conclave with the author themselves, perhaps. So what they're basically saying is that the author and the editor of the series should basically have the final say on what gets on how a translation moves forward. In other words, they wouldn't be able to put any of their own, social political beliefs in there. The translators would just nix and say, "Hey, if you don't do it the way we want it, we'll just find somebody else who will." So, I think brackets in the case of it's rather obnoxious for the editor to state they imply the MC, the main character, is trans because they don't imply, they state it. The main character is indeed gender nonconforming, but that is not the same as being trans. I've taken a look at Japanese, and it's very clear they are not trans, and that they outright change the dialogue fit their own narrative. Now, what they're talking about here, of course, I believe is that one manga. You know, I think I changed my childhood friend, into a girl. I think that's what the one they're talking about there. Um, that's kind of the manga series at the center of all this right now. And I'm going to step away from the computer for another moment here, make some lighting adjustments here. I'll be right back. And I'm back. Getting ready to move on here to the next question here. There again. What is the worst mistranslation role that you have ever come across? Project Vinland then answers, I've never seen severe translation mistakes from Kodansha and believe they employ some of the best translators in the industry. My favorite being Stephen Paul, who does the translations for Vinland Saga. All I've seen is inconsistencies in naming, most prevalent being in the digital edition of Shaman King that came out last year or even in 2020. I don't remember. So, you know, I talked with the letterer and they told me to work work pressure for the series was so high, they often had to work on a volume, sometimes two, a day, which left little room for quality control. Thankfully, all the inconsistencies are fixed in new print editions, along with more touch-ups, which is really nice. Okay, so I guess that's the end of the Vinland Saga interview because here's next we interviewed at Bonsama, a professional Japanese to English translator for over 15 years with credits in a variety of fields, both technical and creative. One of his current roles is editing and occasionally translating manga. Unfortunately, due to NDAs and the possible risk of angry Twitter mobs attacking their employer, he can't mention the specific series they are currently working on, which is understandable. Understandable. So Nerdigans Inc. asks at Bonsama here, from a professional translator's point of view, what is your take on the situation? And Bonsama responds, disrespectful. The published version of their story disrespects the author's intent and the original audience and the translation profession. If the author had wanted their story to be about a transgender woman, they would have written it that way. Which is true. And again, they're talking about the Seven Seas translation of I think I turned my childhood friend into a girl. We've discussed that over the past few weeks here. That situation's been evolving. Even as I understand it, even the author came out and said, "Hey, no, this is not the way I wrote it." So. The English publisher, let alone the assigned translator, had no right to alter the original author's work. The only exception would be if the author had been consulted and had agreed the change made sense. It is clear from their reaction the author and gave no such consent and likely wasn't consulted in the first place. A little typographical error there. At the author and gave no. Okay, the company I work for has contracts with several Japanese publishers who request English translations across a range of genres, e.g., fantasy, school romances, boys' love, slice of life, science fiction, etc., targeting male and female audiences with a variety of tastes. And this includes titles that focus on so-called alternative lifestyles and sexual identities. Which is true. Manga does do that. Manga actually will produce some of those, Now, granted, the anime for Sailor Moon and what happened there with, with all that, but then again, that was due more to the fact they were trying to make it more child friendly too. So, but that's a different issue altogether. Quote, a major part of my editing work is to ensure at client request, e.g., the publishers, that the English translation is faithful to the intent, tone, and nuance of the Japanese work. The English isn't accurately reflecting the Japanese to the extent that English allows in the limited space of each text, box, bubble, then it's objectively wrong and needs replacing. Where when there is any confusion on meaning or intent, we do our utmost to reach out to the original author for clarification. To do any less would be doing a disservice to everyone. Had that specific translation passed my desk, it would have been rejected, retranslated, and that translator would have been removed from the translation pool or at least assigned a far easier title. On some, it's still all on Sama here, and I guess now they're saying he's got another set of quotes here. I guess Ansama then continues. One of the biggest problems right now is the lack of accountability in English localization. Translators, editors, and English publishers are not being held to task. There's too little quality assurance, and this has allowed certain quote unquote professionals to get away with doing subpar work to the extent that such work is now the celebrated norm. This is especially true of games. Worse is that now feel untouchable and will do whatever they can to silence disagreement, even that from other professional translators. I do hope that the increasing unhappiness among intended audiences with the current state of things will be a wake up call that more Japanese publishers start questioning whether their authors' works are being respectfully and faithfully presented to the English language audience. The best way for audiences to help is to politely voice their complaints and concerns to publishers. Angry, hate filled rants, no matter how deserved they may feel, will only cement the position of these translators as victims, and nothing will change, which is true. We don't want them looking like the victim because then nobody will call them to task. It'll become more about your hateful rant than actually what the problem is. It becomes a deflection. Outsourced translators aren't always vetted for quality, I guess, especially when they're new. And one of the vendors we work with has this annoying habit to assign new translators long, difficult series. They should be given shorter, easier things first. Nerdigans Inc. Nerdigans Inc. asks, so vendors aren't properly training their new translators before assigning them translate long series. Is it because the vendors are shorthanded? Um, Bonsama responds, I don't know which vendors are being used, so cannot comment with any accuracy. But I believe there are several factors that lead to a quality problem. Japanese ability, English ability, familiarity with genre, high burnout, and high turnaround. Problems with the hiring process would account for the first two factors, slipping through. I can't really say much more than that as I don't know the specifics of their hiring process. The third factor, genre familiarity, is one that the translator would have to address themselves. Read works in the genre, gain an understanding of the general vocabulary in both Japanese and French. The last two are a problem with the industry as a whole. Short deadlines with little or no downtime between and low pay. Some companies reportedly pay in the low tens of yen per page for translation, parentheses, and likely even less for editing. Doesn't exactly attract a well trained translator or one that's willing to stay for long. Other companies pay slightly better in low hundreds of yen per page, but again, less for editing. Oh, but even on the higher end, it's not a sustainable living wage. And a given schedule could see you working 6 or 7 days straight or more. So most translators and editors likely do this as a side gig, meaning it's not getting their full attention. It's definitely being rushed. Excuse me a moment. I'll check something here. All right, I'm back. Let's see. Nerdigan Kingston asks, in regard to questionable translators and translations, should professional translators begin voicing their concerns to Japanese publishers? From Bonkama, this Bonkama responds, is another tricky one. Depending on many factors, they may not be able to. They also, unfortunately, wouldn't carry much weight outside of any social following they may have. However, it would certainly be welcomed if more professional translators did speak out. But know that doing so will likely make getting future work difficult, especially when it comes to games. This isn't so much a problem with publishers, but with a certain group of translators who enforce their own stranglehold on the industry, keeping out anyone they find undesirable. In other words, what he's talking about is uh, translators who gatekeep their own industry, basically. What can fans do to help improve the localization of their favorite Japanese properties? My first advice is don't involve the author unless they've self published and have handled the localization or licensing, in parentheses, themselves, they cannot do anything. Legally, they can't. Their publisher owns the rights to their work and the rights to license the work to others, and as such, are the ones who could, in theory, raise concerns about quality with the licenses. Here's the downside, though. Japanese publishers are likely lacking a decent route for overseas fans to voice their concerns. Japanese companies aren't known for engaging customers, even Japanese customers, on social media. Many will only accept feedback in Japanese too. I wouldn't give up though. Seek like-minded fans if needed who can help form a Japanese language comment voicing concerns. Be polite, don't demand, ask. As much as possible, mention the specific issue, but don't directly call out any individuals. Privacy is a big deal in Japan, and overly personal allegations, however true, can be cause for legal problems. So any such personal allegations would likely have to end up in the bin to save the publisher from potential unwanted problems. So just a polite comment speaking about how book published by Western publisher has these problems and how that has affected your enjoyment of the book would likely be a good starting point. So he's pointing out there. So focus on the book, who the publisher is, and what the issue is, what the specific issue is, and why it's affecting your enjoyment of the book. That's what he's getting at. Be direct, but be polite. So there we go. So that's it for that one. So as I figured, the the two interviews are gonna probably take a while to get through. So we got one more article to go over. Give me a sec here while I go do something. All right. About to cover. Huh. All right. So, anyways, we're about to get to this. This is the last article I'm going to go through before we head into the wrestling roundup. All right. So, indie publisher Voyage Comics launches its quote Voyage Classics unquote line with the Book of Saints and Heroes article by J.B. Augustine published yesterday. All right, so let's get into this then. Voyage Comics invites readers to quote immerse themselves in a collection of legendary stories where saints fought dragons, talked to centaurs, and healed troubled beasts, unquote, with the Book of Saints and Heroes. Yeah, some interesting stuff here by Andrew and Lenora Lang. This book, Voyage, explains is part of a new line of theirs called Voyage Classics. They're reprints, lost classic stories that fell into public domain. Sounds similar to what RJ is doing, or Project RJ is getting ready to be involved with. He was talking about the other day. Quote, we will be reprinting many entertaining and inspiring books that are currently in the public domain. They say in their campaign, quote, our editions of these books will include original illustrations and new typesetting to help bring these classics to a new audience. Voyage is funding TBOSAH through a special crowdfunding campaign driven by pre-orders. Each one backs the first issue and guarantees the buyer a copy, regardless of whether or not we reach the campaign goal. The book is near completion, will ship in August, they reassure. Quote, medieval Christians are expert storytellers, illustrating profound spiritual truths through exciting legends that captured imagination, unquote, says the campaign. Quote, they greatly admired the saints and heroes who walked among them and preserved their memory in tales that are difficult to forget. Among the saintly and heroic tales contained in the tome are that of St. George and the Dragon, where he rescued a princess offered as a sacrifice. The account of Ireland's St. Columbia banishing the Loch Ness monster to the famous lake in Scotland, St. Francis of Assisi taming the wolf of Gubbio, and St. Jerome removing the thorn from the lion's paw. These are some pretty interesting stories. Voyage also hopes readers will, quote, marvel at the holiness and extraordinary charity of St. Elizabeth of Hungary, St. Margaret of Scotland, and St. Vincent de Paul. Gather the whole family to read these remarkable legends and be inspired by saints who are not afraid to lead heroic lives. Wow, that one sounds pretty interesting. Oh, and there's more to the article. The way they were writing it there seemed like about to end the article there, but the Book of Saints and Heroes tells of the journeys of Saint Paul the Hermit, Saint Anthony the Great, across the deserts of Egypt in the 3rd and 4th centuries too, plus many more on top of history and lessons of the Catholic faith. The content is derived from the collection of works by Victorian Scottish novelist and historian Andrew Lang, along with his wife, Lenora, who, despite not practicing Christianity, published a book on saints and heroes of the medieval period. Although the tales are meant to be read aloud to children and are popular in homeschool environments, all ages are encouraged to partake in the wonder. Quote, we all need to awaken in ourselves a sense of wonder, and these legends can help even adults achieve their goal, said Voyage. Lang and his wife were well known as well for the color-coded fairy books series, a favorite of J.R.R. Tolkien. If you're a fan of his and the Lord of the Rings, let us tell us if you are going to pick up a copy of Books of Saints and Heroes. So that's it for that article. That one went kind of quicker than. All right, so those are the three articles. And I already talked about, of course, passings of the three voice actors I mentioned. Alrighty then. So with that, okay, so we'll unshare this now just because. All right. So, anyways, let's go to cage match here. All right. So, essentially, okay. So now we're done with the articles. Now it's time for the wrestling roundup. So, first off, of course, this past Saturday, WWE had its SummerSlam event. I don't think there were any major. Well, there weren't too many. Let's see. Roman Reigns retained the unified titles, basically burying Brock under a bunch of debris to win the last man standing match. The show started off with the Raw Women's title match in which Bianca Belair had retained over Becky Lynch, and in a show of respect, led to Becky Lynch's face turn as the returning Bayley with a new faction made up of her and returning WWE stars Dakota Kai and Io Sky, formerly Io Shirai, made their presence felt and confronted Bianca Belair, with Bayley laying claim to being the next one to go after the Raw Women's title. This was a stable that was initially pitched during Vince's time as CEO and creative controller, but he rejected it. So obviously, Triple H is taking this time to make his mark as the new creative director for the WWE, as we'll see what more comes of the aftermath tonight on Raw. Edge made his return, helping the Mysterios defeat his former faction, the Judgment Day. See, and another turn, a heel turn this time. Liv Morgan retained the SmackDown Women's title over Ronda Rousey, but due to the fact that as Rousey had Morgan locked in a cross arm breaker, her shoulders are down. The ref counted 3, and just before he counted 3, made the third count, Liv Morgan had tapped out, but the referee did not see it. This incensed Ronda Rousey, and she ended up attacking both the ref and Liv Morgan. In the process, Charlotte Flair came out to help save Liv Morgan going after Ronda Rousey. Bobby Lashley retained the United States title over Austin Theory. Theory teased the idea of cashing in his Money in the Bank, only for Brock Lesnar to put the kibosh on that. So more or less, it's and that's a lot of what was going on in the main storylines there. So, and the other big event that happened this weekend is and the Usos, of course, retained the tag titles with Jeff Jarrett. And as I told you, Jeff Jarrett had a very big weekend this weekend. He was the special guest referee for the tag titles at SummerSlam, and then he also was involved in the main event at Ric Flair's last match, in which he teamed with Jay Lethal take on Ric Flair. Excuse me a moment, I'm going to go off camera here for a second. I'm going to be right back. All right, I'm back now, and it looks like we have somebody who came in. Thank you. And like and share this thing, see if we can get some more people. Yeah. So, anyways, continuing on with the wrestling roundup here. And they left again. Okay. As I was saying, of course, Ric Flair had his official last match last weekend, in which he, of course, won. He teamed with his son-in-law, and Andre El Idolo to defeat Jay Lethal and Jeff Jarrett. Let's see, his other son-in-law, Conrad Thompson, had also gotten involved and helped, basically handing Team Flair a pair of, I think it was brass knucks to help secure the victory. Of course, Josh Alexander had retained the Impact title against Jacob Fatu in their match via a I'm trying to think here. Oh, via no contest. That's what it was. Also at the event, some of the other big matchups. Jordan Grace retained the Impact Knockouts Championship in a three-way match over Deonna Purrazzo and Rachel Ellering. The Briscoes, Jay and Mark Briscoe, defeated the Von Erichs, Marshall and Ross Von Erich. As I explained before, Marshall and Ross are the sons of Kevin Von Erich. So just Ray Phoenix won his four-way match against. Now, mind you, there was talent being represented here from a number of different wrestling organizations, including All Elite Wrestling, Ring of Honor, the NWA, Major League Wrestling, New Japan. So at this event, so a number of and Impact Wrestling. So let's see, in the tag team match between families, Brian Pillman Jr. and Brock Anderson, with Arn Anderson in their corner, defeated the Mortons, coming over from the NWA, Robert Gibson in their corner. In a number one contendership match for the Progress World title, in a four-way match, Jonathan Gresham defeated Alan Angels, Konosuke Takeshita, and Nick Wayne. Killer Cross defeated Harry Smith, who was going by the name Davey Boy Smith Jr. Basically, the Motor City Machine Guns defeated the American Wolves of Eddie Edwards and Davey Richards. Of course, somewhat continuing the feud, the feud of of the Machine Guns and Honor No More with Eddie Edwards from Impact. The pre-show, of course, saw Ren Narita defeat Yuya Uemura in a match from a match in match representing participants from New Japan. And then on the pre-show also, the Bunkhouse Battle Royal was won by Maurice Warner. So that was basically the results of the. Now on some other events here, to kind of get caught up on some of the stuff going on with. So we go back to Thursday's Impact Wrestling, where as they're continuing towards Emergence right now, Emergence, which is coming up on the 12th, a little under 2 weeks away here, about a week and a half or so, like not this Friday, but next Friday. Josh Alexander will be defending the Impact World title against Alex Shelley. Jordan Grace is scheduled to defend the Knockout title against Mia Yim. Let's see. Rosemary and Taya Valkyrie will be defending the Knockouts tag titles against the team now known as Vex, which is Chelsea Green and Diona Purrazzo. And basically in another big match that was signed on this past week's Impact, there'll be a 10-man tag match involving Bullet Club and Honor No More, with the specific stipulations being, if Honor No More wins, then Mike Bennett and Matt Taven will get a title shot against the Good Brothers for the Impact World Tag Titles. If Honor No More loses, they will be forced to disband. So that's what basically is going down right now for that. Those are the matches that are set up for Emergence, which comes up on the 12th. See some of the matches that happened this past week on Impact that were leading to some of this. I know Eddie Edwards defeated Ace Austin. Let's see, had a couple of showcase matches as well, but yeah. So that's basically what's all going on there with that. So let's see. And then we have, of course, some of the happenings from Friday's show. Some happenings from AEW, from AEW's Friday show there. So take a look at that. Let me just. As AEW, their next pay-per-view will be All Out in early September, but they've got another special show. They're just coming off a Fight for the Fallen here this last week, and now not this week, next week we got Quake by the Lake, and I think one of the matches that was signed for that was Chris Jericho taking on John Moxley for the interim world AEW interim world championship. So let me see. Let's see. Now for this Wednesday, though, this coming Wednesday, some of the matches that will be going on All Elite. Let's see. First off, let's go back to look at happened on. I also know that Anna Jay had defeated Ruby Soho in that matchup. So this past Friday's Rampage. Let's see what happened here. See if there's anything. I did mention. See. Yeah. So of course, in the match, we saw Ethan Page defeat Leon Ruffin in 131. In the teacher versus student match, the student, in essence, Lee Moriarty defeated the teacher, Matt Seidel, and of course eventually took the card of Stokely Hathaway to become a member of his faction. Anna Jay defeated Ruby Soho, taking advantage of her injured wrist in the match. Ruby Soho's now both girls have had pretty incredible records here in 2022. And Anna Jay, so to some fans, I'm sure Anna Jay's heel turn has been a bit of a disappointment. But many people believe it will help her maybe move up and maybe get more title shots, especially associating herself with Chris Jericho and the Jericho Appreciation Society. So I guess time will only tell with that. They're also pushing, of course, Daniel Garcia as a potential future main eventer for the. Hey, Toys! Glad you dropped in, my friend. Thanks for the like and share. Let's see now. As I said too, Quake by the Lake is supposed to be happening on the on the 10th there. So, and then actually, so the next kind of event to be happening live is Battle of the Belts 3, which is coming up this Friday. Battle of the Belts 3, which is the same day as Rampage will be going on. Let's see if there are any matches scheduled. Battle of the Belts 3. The only match thus far scheduled for Battle of the Belts 3, which happens this Friday, Claudio Castagnoli will be defending the Ring of Honor World Title against Konosuke Takeshita or Takeshita, however you want to pronounce it. Let's see. On this Wednesday's Dynamite from Columbus, Ohio. See what's going on here for that. On this Wednesday, let's see. Already scheduled. Chris Jericho will be taking on Wheeler Yuta. Jay Lethal will be taking on Orange Cassidy. In a dumpster tag team match, the Acclaimed, Anthony Bowens and Max Caster will be taking on the Gun Club, Austin and Colton Gunn, with their father/coach in their corner, Billy Gunn. Matt Hardy takes on Christian Cage in a matchup of this classic rivalry between two from representing two of the considered greatest tag teams of all time. And then Dr. Britt Baker teams of Jamie Hayter to take on the team people are calling Thunderstorm right now, Thunder Rosa and Tony Storm. So that's all happening in AEW right now. I already talked about Impact. So with that, I think it's a good time to start winding things down now. Let's see, we're coming up on an hour 56, so we're coming up on the 2-hour mark here. So we'll start to wrap up here. But this day in each history. History! Day being August 1st, 2022. Let's take a look back at this day. Each history. History! Alrighty then. So the first thing we're gonna go back 30 years ago today, is on this date 30 years ago today. As soon as I can call it up here. Couple of things. Well, even though there's no specific date given towards these things, they happened in August of 1992, so you could presume started from August 1st, obviously. First off, South Atlantic Pro Wrestling, which is an organization that was kind of started up by like Paul Jones after a couple years after leaving Jim Crockett Promotions. This organization started up in 1990 and it ceased operations in August of 1992. And also, the syndicated Superstars of Wrestling show is not to be confused with the WWF show. It's not the WWF. This is another one that was edited and that was hosted and produced by Joe Pedicino. It was canceled when he decided to end production of the program due to other commitments. So in August of 1992, at the start of it, anyways, South Atlantic Pro Wrestling ceased operations, and Joe Pedicino decided to end production on his Superstars of Wrestling. Whoa, what the hell was that? All right. I don't know why that happened, but alrighty then. Yeah. Anyways. So there's that. So moving on to the next piece of niche history here. As also in 1992, the anime. Okay, so also in 1992. Let me pull that share screen up. Huh, what? Okay, so the anime film based on the series Yawara, the animated film produced by Madhouse of Yawara Kureyuke Toshinuki Kizu. As I understand it, this particular translation means Yawara, go get 'em, Wimpy Boys. This film premiered on this date back in 1992. So 30 years ago today, the animated film Yawara, go get 'em, Wimpy Boys, or Wimpy Kids, premiered in Japanese theaters on this date back in 1992. So there we go with that one. Moving on to the next piece of neat history here. Move ahead to 1997. As on this date in 1997, Eek the Cat, also known by this point as Eekstravaganza, would end its run on Fox Kids. On this date in 1997, Eek the Cat would end its run on Fox Kids and YTV, so it would be canceled, come to an end here on this date in 1997. So that's 25 years ago today. 5 years ago today, Eek the Cat would end its first run of shows. So, and with that, we have one more piece of Nietzsche history to get through here. As on this date in 2001, on this date in 2001, from Image Comics Top Cow imprint, the 50th issue of Witchblade went on sale on this date, $4.95, 48 pages. On this date, 2001, which is 21 years ago today, the 50th issue of Witchblade went on sale from Image Comics Top Cow imprint. So there you go. So that's all I got for you tonight, folks. I hope you enjoyed the content. Went over a couple of interesting interviews there. If you missed any part of the show, of course, I keep these up so you can go back and watch the replays. Always better, though, to watch things live so you can interact, in real time with the content and with me, of course. But if there's anything you missed, we talked, of course, the passing of 3 legendary voice actors earlier: David Warner, Nichelle Nichols, and Pat Carroll. We had a couple of interviews we went over from, in regards to like some of the censorship localization issues, and then we also talked a little bit about Voyage Comics. So with that, I thank y'all for being here. This Friday, of course, Rick Piper will be joining me this week as we get started going over April 1939 on a historical comics retrospect, in which we will be looking at, which will be, of course, continuing our look back at comics history there. This week we'll be looking at DC comics that went on sale, and we'll actually be looking into the first appearances of Batman, Sandman, and the first appearance of Ma Hunkel, the Golden Age Red Tornado. There's some exciting stuff happening this week. And I will hopefully get back here tomorrow. Bye.